How you doing, guys? Eric from thewasteland.com. As the war drums beat louder all over the world, and honestly I think we're past the drum stage and onto the actual sound of artillery salvos, the chances of someone somewhere actually using a nuclear weapon becomes vastly higher, to the point that even very reasonable JJ from Reality Survival, who you all know, and definitely check out, he's releasing a new, or has released a new app called the APA app. Definitely check it out. His recent live stream was mentioning that. Really cool stuff, which will put you in touch with a lot of good content. But to the point where even he, who's been one of the most reasonable, most or less reactive voices in the preparedness community for years, has just recently said that he thinks the chance of a nuclear weapon being used in some capacity is like 50-50. Now, to be clear, he's talking most of that 50% likelihood is taken up with the like a small tactical nuke. Like that's like 90+% of that likelihood is someone just setting one off somewhere in wartime. I'd have to watch this video again. I'm not sure if he specifies, but I don't think that includes testing. But if you include like a nuclear test happening, then I think we're at like 90% chance that a nuclear bomb will go off at some point in the next 5 years, let's say, which is crazy if you really think about it. Like we're at the point now where that's not making people bat an eyelid. Like most of you watching the video are probably like, yeah, that sounds about right. Or, you know, you might be quibbling over the percentage and say we're at 75% or even just 50% of any use of a nuclear weapon. But think about that. If we're even at like 25% chance that there is any type of nuclear detonation, including a test, that is like wild. And the fact that, like I said, that's not making us instantly freak out and run into the bunker is telling about the state of the world and international relations. And I think it's so important to get prepared now, because even more so than a lot of other things, the stuff you would need or want to get once that happens is going to be just so much infinitely more difficult. Because if you think about like gas masks, the potassium iodide, the any sort of shelter material, any sort of protective gear, any sort of measuring devices, even compared to overall preparedness gear, and certainly related to overall, you know, useful and necessary items like food, the market is minuscule, and the demand will instantly go from like, I mean, it'll 1000x easy, maybe much more than that, because first of all, governments are already buying this stuff up and taking up the supply. And then if we're to, like, how many people do you think own a CBRN gas mask or are even interested in buying one right now? And then compare that to what that number would be if even a nuclear test goes off. So I wanted to make this video to let you guys know to get that stuff now, because it's just not something you should gamble on, and the relative cost is nothing compared to the necessity for it if this happens. And something that we're talking about being even a coin flip likelihood is crazy. And especially because I just got an email from Mira that because of Prime Day, they're running a sale for the next 2 days only. I think the 11th and 12th, it's either the 10th and 11th or 11th and 12th. So either way, jump on it now. 25% off. So if that's not a good enough reason for you to run out there and jump on this now, if you haven't already, you will not get a better opportunity, I don't think, in the next many years. And it doesn't have to be Mira. You know, they're the ones that I've gotten. There's other companies out there, but I just know that right now it even takes a few weeks. And you don't have to get the full face. If you're talking just nuclear, you can usually get away with, if you have a decent shelter especially, or even planning on staying inside your house and aren't too worried about your eyes or have other method of eye protection, the tactical respirator is way cheaper and has a lot of other functionality too, beyond just nuclear. And so that's significantly cheaper than if you want to do the full face. But these things are going to disappear. There already takes like 3 weeks or maybe slightly more. And when something goes off, even if it's just a test, but God forbid it's not, let's say we actually have a tactical nuclear detonation in Ukraine, Iran does something, North Korea does something, there's so many people that could do something. What do you think the availability of these filters is going to be then? You think it's going to take 3 weeks to get one, or you think it's just going to be sold out in 5 minutes? So even if you, I mean, if you want to get cynical and weird about it, you could even talk about the resale value of something like that. A lot of these, filters will last for like 25 years, or maybe it's 20 years. Regardless, it's like a decade plus shelf life on the various filters. It depends on what type you get, but 25% off now versus completely unavailable, I think it makes sense, but it's up to you guys. Like I said, I'm not trying to shill for this company in particular. I just think it's a great time because of their discount, because of the fact that even the more even keel, level-headed people are starting to put the likelihood of this happening at fairly high. Like I said, coin flip we're talking about, to where you will not be able to get these anymore. If you're talking about 50% chance in the next couple of years that these will be completely unavailable. Masks, filters, potassium iodide, that sort of thing. So I know what I would do / have done, and let me know what you guys think, what you would put that percentage at, because I tend to agree that I think the ballpark would probably have to be somewhere around a coin flip if you're talking about actual use of one somewhere. Even if it's just in the middle of an empty field in Ukraine or something where they're just like, all right, we've had enough, boom. Now what are you going to do, kind of thing. And if you add in testing, then that goes way up. I think we might even, I mean, there might already be testing happening, and it just is classified and secret and hasn't gotten out yet. But, and then like when you add, like I said, North Korea, Iran, Israel, India, Pakistan, China, US, Russia, all these countries have nuclear weapons, and all are at the forefront, with the exception of probably India, Pakistan right now, but they're involved with the BRICS nations to begin with. And like most of these major militaries that have nukes are the ones that are going to be or are already involved in potentially massive conflicts. And I know Iran doesn't technically have them officially, but they apparently have the ability to have them within a few weeks if they don't already. So very, very likely that something's going to happen that would make the availability of this stuff go to zero for at least a period of many, many months, I would guess. And it seems like a decent chunk of change out of your pocket right now, but if you go for the cheaper route, where you have like the tactical respirator and a few of the filters, and the filters are the more important part, because I would rather have a old surplus gas, which I don't recommend, but I would rather have an old surplus gas mask with a brand new mirror filter than vice versa, than have a great CBRN mask with an old surplus filter, which I've just put on here for demonstration purposes so I don't have to open any of my real ones. This one's been open forever. I would certainly not be using this in a real world scenario where I needed it. And look at the size. You can get the little ones too, which will be much less heavy, much less in the way, that sort of thing. So if you have to just go with an old mask and a new filter, that would be what I recommend as being much safer, because as long as the rubber isn't cracked and the seal's good, that's much more likely to work than the opposite, where you have a super good mask and a super old, Cold War era filter. Would not rely on that. Better than nothing, sure, but that would be my first step, would be to get the filters if you already have any kind of gas mask, and you're limited on some funds, which, believe me, I know about that. And then when you can, pick up the respirator itself. But I believe the respirator comes with, or can come with, depending on options, a couple of the filters. So that would be my optimal solution if you're primarily worried about nuclear or just particulate, like fallout radiation. And they have other filters too. They have specifically ones that are made for viral protection. And they're beating that drum again, speaking of war drums, about H1, like different kinds of bird flu and other new variations of COVID and whatever. And it's very likely that something like that is going to be appearing again in the headlines over the next few years, whether or not it's real. But again, whether or not it's real, it'll make the availability of that stuff go way, way down. So, didn't mean to ramble. Definitely, if you let me know what you think is the percentage, including tactical, including testing and not including testing. And then, I guess if you want, throw in the percentage of what you think the chances are of some kind of detonation outside the Russia-Ukraine theater and actually happening in a city, or like in an actual attack of some sort. Because I would put that percentage at low but still disturbingly high, like somewhere under 10%, but maybe approaching 10% chance that a nuke is actually used on a real, not already destroyed city at some point within the next 5 years, which is crazy. So I definitely, absolutely think that we're at a higher risk of there being some kind of event, nuclear event, than we ever were during the Cold War, which is pretty scary to think of. So get your preps now when it's 25% off, and I think you'll be glad you did, even if it's just because the panic happens and then you'll know you have it already, whether or not we actually see something go off in an American or European city, which I really hope isn't the case, and I don't think is a probability, but I think it's a possibility, and that's what we prepare for. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.